Video conferencing is, more and more, becoming the way we meet. With so many more people meeting virtually, the workspace, as it's designed now, presents a problem.
Well, hello, good afternoon or good morning, wherever you're dialing in from, and welcome to this live demonstration of the Spacestor Residence Connect. Looks like we've got a fair spread of locations on today. I can see we've got clients on from, looks as though from Dubai to North Carolina. So welcome and thanks so much for joining us. My name's Alex Harvey, I'm VP of Sales here with Spacestor, and really excited to kind of share the Spacestor Residence Connect with you and just explain a little bit around where we see it fitting into the workplaces, not just of today, but the future of the workplace. We believe that what we're bringing to you is an entirely new category of product, a unique new concept in the marketplace, which is a modular video room that's designed from the ground up to create the ultimate video experience. Now, if I just talk to you a little bit around the use case and where we see this product being used in today's workplaces. So I guess as a result of the pandemic, we've seen a dramatic increase in what we call the hybrid workspace. So people will be in the future working some of the time from home, some of the time from the office. And as a result, that will mean your colleagues won't always be sitting next to you. And we've certainly seen the number of video calls rapidly increasing, both from the point of view of the change of habits that the global pandemic has brought to us, but also the use case for the types of calls that are done over video today has grown dramatically in the last 6 to 9 months. So it's not just meetings, but it's now presentations to clients. It may be interviews, maybe brainstorming sessions. We're working with healthcare providers in the clinical area and providing patient video consultations. So we're seeing that the use case has dramatically increased and the overall use of video has increased. And quite simply, most workplaces today are not designed to accommodate that amount of video calls. Now, there is a simple solution we've seen happening in some with some clients and with some workplaces, which is simply placing a screen into some kind of quiet pod. And that's actually adequate for some scenarios. But what we're now seeing is an increase, not just in the length of the video meetings, but also in people running back-to-back video meetings in many roles, which means you end up working in a quiet working pod of some sort for 2, 3, and sometimes up to 4 hours. And the use of a quiet pod or a phone pod with a screen in it is going to be, firstly, it's going to lead to worker fatigue because of maybe poor air circulation, poor lighting, poor use of technology. So effectively, the use of that pod, which was designed originally for a quick phone call, is going to lead to reduce productivity, to reduced outcomes. And that's really what we're about, is around creating happy people, around making the employees, the workers in your organization, making people happy, making them productive, making them able to do the best work that they can do. So this product, which I'm really excited to bring to you today, which is just behind me here, the Residence Connect. So this was designed in collaboration with one of our global tech companies that we work with very closely. And over 2 years, we've developed and designed this product, which I think it'd be worth just outlining the key factors we're seeking to address. So first of all, inclusivity. And what we mean by that is that any user will get an excellent or an inclusive video experience. So we hear a lot of clients talking about digital inclusion nowadays. And it means that any user, and we'll talk a bit around the detail of what this means once I get into the actual product demo itself. Environmental and sustainability is also another key factor in the way this product was designed to create the most environmental products that we can provide, because we recognize the growing importance, both for ourselves and also for our clients globally, of workplace designs and buildings, making an improvement to the environmental factors. And the third point is outstanding user experience. Now, there's many factors to that, and again, I'll talk in a bit more detail once we get to the kind of in-depth product demo. But one of the particular things was acoustics, but it's so much more than just acoustics. So we'll touch on that in a second or two. And then finally, tech integration, so the ability to bring technology into the pod seamlessly in a way that works, and again gives the best video experience that we can possibly provide. And also, we've designed this product to be tech agnostic, so we aren't necessarily tied into any particular hardware or software manufacturer in the ability for this product to work really well for you. And then finally, flexibility. And what we mean by that is this is a modular plug and play product which can be rapidly deployed in the initial installation or provision, and then it can also be future flexible, so it can actually be dismantled, relocated, rebuilt, and that kind of thing. So if you need to change it in the future. Now that brings me on to the two main product variants that we're launching this week. So first of all, we have the Residence Connect, which is the product right behind me, the Residence Connect, and then the Residence Connect Accessible, which is exactly the same footprint, exactly the same design language, but it's designed to be wheelchair accessible. So with both products, we have as you'll see behind me, a 32-inch wide door with a step-free threshold or a level threshold. But the accessible version on the right-hand side of your screen now, you'll see has a door directly into the end of the pod, which gives you the ability of bringing a wheelchair directly in and out of the pod. And we've tried to make it as easy as possible for wheelchair users to actually access and use this product. So we've further developed that concept in having a push button electronic door opener. So a wheelchair user would come up to the outside of the pod, push the push button, the door would automatically open, and then there's also a push button internally for them to release themselves and go away once they're finished. Now, both versions, both variants, the Residence Connect and the Accessible, both have the option for a 3-inch chase, which is built into this end of the product, and we actually have it on this demo model here. The point of that is really to provide concealed routing for things like mechanical provision, whether it's sprinklers or fire alarm strobes or anything like that, or power or data. So we can bring that seamlessly and in a concealed way into the body of the pod. So we've actually designed it so you've got the option for access either from the top down, so you could access through the ceiling void, from the floor up, or from either side, or actually you could even access it from the end as well. So depending on where it's situated within a workplace, you've got the ability to bring those mechanical or electrical or data provisions directly into the pod. And then hopefully you can see my video screen now, so we'll kind of dive into some of the details. So we talked a little bit around the plug and play nature of this product. So this is effectively designed to be provisioned into any environment, into any workplace environment. So we have an internal steel structure, which is the kind of frame of the product. And a couple of points to mention on that. Firstly, that has a huge amount of floor leveling tolerance built into it. So you can have up to 3/4 of an inch across the footprint of each pod of tolerance built in. So if you were going on to, for example, a concrete floor where maybe the leveling was a bit wavy, we've got the ability to accommodate that within the pod itself. Can also go, while we're talking about floors, it can also go onto carpet, can also go onto raised access floor. So we've got a whole load of options there in terms of where the product could sit. And as I say, it's designed to be plug and play. So that means it's very simple for us to install and provide. The only infrastructure we need is a single power socket. So in the US, that's going to be 120 volt. In the UK, that's going to be 240 volt, but a single power socket, either a nearby convenience or maybe a dedicated socket if that's what's available, and also a data outlet, so a Cat5 or a Cat6 data outlet. So that's the kind of plug and play nature of the product. And I'm also really excited to tell you that this product has just been approved for UL certification. So this product has been tested and approved to UL 962. And what that means, if you're not familiar with it, is it's a very, I would say, a very stringent and robust product testing certification around the structure and stability of the product itself. So we've had to take some really extreme tests to the actual product around stability and the electrical components, as well as things like fire testing. So we've had to do burn tests on the materials. So it's a really important part, particularly for some workspace where code compliance might become an issue around the use of pods. So we see that as a great advantage, and again, is unique in the market. And then onto the point about environmental, which I mentioned earlier. So wherever possible, we've made this product red list free. So we've removed, for example, we've sought to remove PVC from the entire product. And what that meant was, with some of the acoustic seals, we had to actually tool up a special silicon acoustic seal, which isn't available anywhere. So we had to create something new to remove PVC, which is environmentally a problem. And likewise, the surface materials, so the laminates or the plywoods and that kind of thing that we've used throughout, are either zero added or very low added formaldehyde. Now, what I'm going to do is step inside the pod now, and I'll give you a walk through some of the internal and user features. So hopefully you can see inside the pod on your screen. And as I step in, I guess the first thing to notice is you can probably just see that I'm actually sitting on an ergonomic or a task chair here. And this is one of the really important things, just remembering back to what I referred to earlier, that kind of 2 or 3 or 4 hour, that longer use case. If you're working in a foam pod where you're typically sitting on either a stool or a perch, that's really not going to work for 2 or 3 or 4 hours. I know your body's going to really struggle with it. You're going to struggle with focus and concentration, and you're actually going to really struggle with doing the best work that you can do. So I'm a heavy user of this kind of pod. I use them the whole time. And this is one of the things that's really important for me, is the ability to sit in an ergonomic chair. And we've increased the footprint of the pod to make allowance for that. So that's an important point to mention. And then just staying on the subject of kind of focus and productivity for the user, we have inbuilt ventilation. So the product itself has built-in air ventilation, which is coming through a fan. You probably can't see it, but it's above me in the ceiling. So it's bringing fresh air in from the open plan space around, or the ambient workspace around me. And we've got a user control, which I'll show you here in a second, so that each individual user can kind of control the fan speed, the amount of air ventilation that's coming through to suit their own comfort. Now, that fan is designed so that every 4 minutes, all of the air within this pod goes through a complete change. So it's bringing fresh air in. And then there are some vents along the bottom of the walls here, where we've got a unique patented air return system, which brings air up inside these walls and then exhausts that back out into the open plan space. So ventilation is a really important part of productivity, bringing fresh air, fresh oxygen, so that your brain can do the best work it can. And then acoustics I've also touched on, and that was again a very important part of the development and design of this product. Now, creating a robust acoustic envelope, so effectively masking the sound, and the masking really comes from a two-way perspective. So first of all, the noise that's inside the pod, so that's the user talking, and particularly if they're on a phone call or a video call, the electronic noise coming from their laptop or the speakers of the PC that's built into the pod is actually quite difficult to mask that electronic noise. And we had to work really hard to make sure that we could come up with a product that enabled that sound to be masked from the point of view of anyone in the workplace nearby, because distraction and productivity is a key factor in today's workplaces. And the conversations that are held inside a phone pod not only need to be kept private from a client confidentiality point of view, but also need to be kept closed off from the point of view of distracting workers nearby. And there's an interesting study being done around what they call one-sided conversations. And what that really means is, if you picture a scenario where you're maybe in a train carriage, or maybe in an airport or something like that, and you can hear two people chatting to each other kind of somewhere nearby, but you're not interested in what they're talking about. You're trying to get on with some work or something like that. And actually your brain is able to zone out that conversation because you can hear both parts of it and you can just kind of close that off. But it's a funny thing that actually where you can only hear half of that conversation, so if it was, for example, a phone call, and you could only hear one person talking, not the person on the other end, obviously, or maybe a video call with a person with headphones on, if you can only hear half that conversation, even if you're not trying to eavesdrop, your brain is actually inherently wired to try and figure out what's going on, and you're just going to lose concentration, you're going to lose focus, you're going to lose productivity as a result. So removing those one-sided conversations from the open plan space and putting them into an environment where they can be completely enclosed was really important in the design of this product. And of course, we have the other side of the acoustic envelope, which is from the user inside's point of view. They will often come work in a pod like this. It may not be video calls, it may be just coming in to just do some work. And they want to be in a quiet environment that cuts out the buzz and the chatter and the noise that may be going on around them. So definitely a two-part to that acoustic envelope. Now, I'd like to talk to you a little bit around the way that user might use this product as well. So as you'll see, I'm sitting in the pod now, and you can see this table is somewhere up near my chin. So that's obviously not going to be great for me. But we've got a sit to stand electronically height adjustable table. So I can actually bring this to the right ergonomic level for me and for someone of my height. And worth also saying as a side note, we've tested this to be ergonomic for the 95th percentile of people, of the population. So we can bring it down to the right height for me. And it's also worth mentioning actually that this drops down to 27 inches from the floor. So again, for a wheelchair user in the accessible version, we can bring it to just the right height for a wheelchair user. Now, that's done a great job in bringing the table to the correct height, but now the screen's at the wrong height. So I can independently adjust this screen, and hopefully you can see that screen moving up and down. So I can bring it to the right height so that my eye level is correct in relation to the screen. The webcam is framing me correctly. And we've worked really hard in the selection of the colors and materials that we use within the pod, so that from a backdrop perspective, you get a very good representation, a visual representation for any person using the pod with any skin tone. And it's been really important understanding the effect of and the impact of light on every skin tone, and how we can make the video experience the best we can for every user, because they need to feel part of that video meeting and part of that conversation. So that's an important part in relation to the adjustment. And then finally, and this relates to what I was saying around the finishes and the visual representation of everyone, we've also got the ability to adjust the light. So hopefully you can see there on screen, the light has dimmed right down. Now I'm bringing it right back up again. And this is what they call a non-directional bias light, which is effectively behind the monitor, throwing light at the back wall and then reflecting back onto my face. So it's a non-directional light. I don't get the harsh shadows that I'd get if I had a direct light shining at my face, which again means that we have the best opportunity of creating an equal or the best possible visual representation of everyone. Now, I will also talk you through some of the kind of user controls and how we use those within the pod. If I just zoom the camera in very slightly. So hopefully you've now got a view internally in the pod, and you can see the, once I get out of the way, you can see the user controls. So we've basically got a set of different user controls for the individual to kind of configure the pod to suit themselves. So we talked a little bit about the sit to stand table and the ability to move that and adjust that to the right height to suit your own personal preferences and what's comfortable for you ergonomically. We talked also about the independently height adjustable screen. And then we also have the user controls for the ventilation, and worth mentioning that all of these user controls are designed with high contrast icons, so that if there was someone who had maybe some kind of sight impairment, they would have the ability to see and use this product as well. And likewise, the dials that we have here, the ventilation control we just talked about and the lighting control, they're also designed to be high dexterity, so that if someone had some kind of finger movement or disability like rheumatoid arthritis or something like that, they can also use this product effectively. And then finally, on the kind of use case internally, we've also got a convenient socket here. So this is a US 120 volt. Obviously it will be different wherever the global location is, but you can, if you're bringing your laptop in, you can just kind of plug that in and do what you need to when you're working in here, particularly if you're working for a longer period of time. And then we've also got the option of a captive USB being built in as well for charging either your tablet or your iPhone or your laptop, whatever it might happen to be. Now, another important part, and I'll just zoom into a different part of the pod, another important part of the actual product is the provisioning of IT itself. So we designed this product to be really easy to use and to manage as well. So from an IT standpoint, clearly they're going to want to have their the IT are going to want to have their screens, their cabling and that kind of thing built in and somewhere hidden within this product itself. And I mentioned the 3-inch chase, which is where a lot of those data cable routes will run. Now I can actually very easily access that by just popping this panel off and removing that, and then pulling off this interior hatch. So that now gives me access if I needed to access either the data and the power, or maybe for servicing for things like the sprinkler provision, or if there was a alarm strobe or something like that. So that just gives me full access to the kind of inner workings of the product without having to get an engineer in to kind of dismantle the product and take it to pieces. So I'll just pop those back in, and that almost brings me to the end of the demonstration today. One other point to mention, particularly if you're on the west coast of the United States, we've obviously got built-in seismic anchoring as well, which is another really important part of the use case of the products for those types of locations. So I'd like to just go back to the main camera now, and I'd love to answer any questions. If there's anything you want to know more about, anything that wasn't clear, feel free to either unmute yourself or to pop your question into the chat box, and more than happy to try and help with those.